Hi everyone, and we welcome to this session. My name is Krishna, and in today's lesson we are going to learn about the Terraform complete course from basic to advanced. This is part of our Terraform end-to-end training series where we exploring concepts and hands-on our examples and a real-time scenario. And so let's let's get start to the course. What is the Terraform? It is going to the Terraform introduction. It is the automation tool that is power up to the automations. I would explain today's session only for modules and concept. How many modules are there? We have a total 25 modules. I have a introduce. Then I will mention to the every in the modules and concept wise that will first module introduction to the Terraform IaC concept. What is that? Infrastructure as a code and declarative versus imperative provision. Terraform architecture like core, state, graph, and next one providers, backends, and plugins. Then once completed this one, I will move to the Azure RM provider overview. What is the Azure RM? Then we'll explain to the overview of the Azure RM provider. And next, it have a differences. What is a Terraform, ARM templates, biceps? Why? Because similar things are there, ARM and bicep also. Why we want to choose to the Terraform? Then I will explain to the when you come more elaborately in sessions one by one. Then second one Terraform 2, like Terraform module 2 in Terraform workflow. What is the Terraform workflow? In Terraform, you need to Terraform plan, Terraform apply, there Terraform destroy, Terraform format and validate, and the execution plan and resource group graph. Then we would be discuss to the next step. What is the variable? What is the output? What is the locals? That would be inside input variables like type and validation, output exposing to the values, local values, naming standards, and variable presence and files, sensitive variables, and best practice we would be discussing to the when you come to module 3 in elaborate lab session along with to the in-depth and Azure storage account. It is a part of the uh, module 4 is Azure storage account in the Terraform. When you are going to the Azure storage, Azure resource, naming resource, roles, storage account, structures, container, files, labels, and random provider using namings output for the storage account. Then we will be discussing each and every one how to create it as a storage account from the Terraform. And Terraform states. Actually, we have a Terraform states are there. Terraform.tf state file, state logging, remote backend, state encryption, security risk, and best practice would be discussed to the Terraform state files. Then we can go for the state and refresh and Terraform provisioning. Terraform provisioning, you can say like local execution, remote execution, file provision. That why when you go for the provisioning should not be, and why cloud init is preferred the over the provision. That would be discussion. It's a important Azure virtual networking. Azure virtual how to create a Azure virtual networking, subnet architectures, networking security, energy rule, inbound, outbound, routing table, UDRS, Azure tags standards, designing production real event. Everything would be discussing when the coming to the module 7 and Azure virtual missions. Module 8 is the Azure virtual missions. In there to EM components, NIC, IP, energy, disk, and also authentications, SSS, and passwords, availability options, uh, zone and availability zone, availability sets. That would be discussion. What is the availability zone and sets, and VM extension, security, and best practice. Everything will be discussed as security best practice. Azure load balancer. You have Azure a load balancer there, public internal public load balancer, internal load balancer, front end IPs, back end pools, LB rules, load balancing rules, health probes, scale set integration, I availability design. That will be coming to the and main concept of the Terraform data source. What is the Terraform source? What is the data source? Difference between rows and data, resources data, importing existing Azure resource logically, using to the lookups for shared infra inputs, and module 8 mega meta arguments are there. It will be we can discuss about to the count for each, depend on when to go use count, when to use for each dynamic infrastructure pattern, and to define the explicitly dependency scaling resource dynamically, that would be covered. And module means reusable, like module is structure, input output variables, local variables, public registry module, dry in principle IAS, versioning modules, reusable uh, reusable architecture pattern, it will be covering. Terraform workspace, it will be helpful into the stage wise creation to the workspace for multi environment infra limitations, workspace for folder based environment, best practice and prod deployment. Terraform lifecycle, prevent to destroy, and create a before destroy, ignore the changes, life controller for production stability. Terraform input, what is the Terraform input? What is the Terraform input? You can discuss it, why input is needed, how to Terraform workspace for the existing Azure resources, import limitation, no automation and code generation, that would be covered into the Terraform import command. And Terraform functions and expressions, we have some functions and expression to the Terraform, like for expression, condition, lookup, container, key values are there, merging and zip mapping for the maps, files, templated files, dynamic block for the energy and subnet, that would be covered on the function and the expressions. Next, it is combination up to the Azure Kubernetes service and Azure Kubernetes service, Terraform Kubernetes combination in Azure. How you created a cluster, like AKS cluster, control panel, node pole, networking module, AG integrations, node pole, auto scaling, cluster identity concept, manage RBAC and Kubernetes add-in integration. That is a combination up to the Terraform, Azure and AKS cluster. Will be discussed into the this one. And Terraform Helm and Kubernetes provide, how you created Terraform through Helm provided concept, Kubernetes provided the authentications, and installing charts via Terraform, how to installing to the Terraform charts, deploying the Kubernetes manifesto via Terraform, and managing ingress controller and apps declarations. In this coming to the this one, and also we have a database, like in Azure we have a SQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL, would be discussed into the for only infrastructure provisioning to the resource. So SQL server or MySQL server, PostgreSQL would be I would be explained to the in this one, flexible server architecture, networking securities, private endpoint and private DNS zones, database availability, Go redundancy, security access using. I can explain. Then app service plan. What is the app service plan? App service plan, it will be defined to the web app, function app, and some logic apps are there, that would be helping to the app service plan. In these concepts, we have a app service plan types, Linux and Windows type, deployment slot, app settings, connection string, X and section on network, that we can discuss about that one. And Azure Key Vault and secrets. What is Azure Key Vault and secrets? Key Vault basics, keys and secrets certificates, and policy via RBAC, and storing TF secrets in the Key Vault. Key Vault integration with the VMs and apps, avoiding the sensitive value in the state. Terraform testing and validation. In that Terraform testing and account validation, Terraform validate, Terraform format, TF linking, checkouts, and policy environment, OPO and central compliance scanning, everything will be discussed in. And CSAD for the Terraform. If you have written to the Terraform code, you can do it to the manual run the Terraform. If you are integrating the CSAD, it will go in the automations, like in Terraform workflow in pipeline, format, validate, int, plan, apply. Store state is backend, security for pipeline, service principal or manage identity. We would be using and implementing to the what is the service principal, how to manage entity configured, that would be helping, and automated infra deployment strategy. And Terraform grant, it is the is advanced one, will be discussed later. And coming to the module 25, here I will explain and give it to the lab three real architecture concepts tier architecture, VNet subnet, VM scale set, application gateway, work off, and uh, Azure concepts are there. That would be will using to the it labs and production AKS deployment. What want to required AKS required, ingress security, ACR integration required, private DNS, node pools, auto scaling, CI/CD for the workload. Everything I will explain. Last one like serverless architecture. In this serverless architecture I will be covering app service span, storage, static website, and Azure functions, key vault, and database backend. That I will be explain and give it to the lab. That's it in this course covered into the total 25 modules are there along with Azure concepts just for the and Azure and AKS. What is the Terraform? Then we have a few concept are there, resource provision providers. Then main conceptly what is the data source and workspace modules uh, that would be helpful to the in implementing to the Terraform. When you are written to the script, it will be flow of the these things we can using and utilizing, then will be easily understanding to the Terraform code and concept. That's it. Thank you. uh, Please subscribe, share, comment, and click on bell icon. Thank you.